I do enjoy listening to you, India.
Arsenal win back possession, and it's broken nicely to Cazorla, 30 metres from goal, plays it to the edge of the area. Alexis Sanchez goes for goal and scores. That's a brilliant goal from Alexis Sanchez. He's been Arsenal's star man this season, and maybe now they're going to get the right.
Hello and welcome to podcast number 40, Mike.
Yeah, I was wondering if you would recognize that. Are you drinking a 40 today to celebrate?
I wish I was, but I'm not. Are you?
That is, I'm gonna remain silent on whether I am or am not drinking a 40. But we need a quick baby update. Are you still crowning or
crowning is over. There is no baby.
There is no. Well, there
wait,
will be.
I don't know what the crowning means, so I.
Oh, come on!
I don't.
Well, just do
no baby
crowning on Google. It better happen on the pod, by the way. I'm going to be feeling really cheated if we don't get the audio of the water breaking for Gooners in the USA. I mean, that's it's the next logical progression of this podcast. But anyway.
Oh yeah, when you Google baby crowning, it's not pretty.
Yeah, that's. Surprised you waited a whole week since we discussed that last week. So, speaking of babies and crowning, we beat Jose. We did. So it's a happy podcast again. But I just want to quickly a shout out because not only did we beat Jose, but I got to watch it with a ton of great people. I mentioned before last week that it was another kind of regional meetup for Gooners, and that's what this whole Gooner thing is about. Virginia is for Gooners was this weekend. We had Gooners from Northern Virginia, D.C., Richmond, Virginia Beach, even some from Chicago, New Orleans. We had our listener from Mozambique come on over for the Gooner meet. It was fantastic. The Beak was in the house.
Yeah.
And special shout out to Alfredo from New Orleans, who was already here on business, but he extended his trip to join us, and also Tony Ritter from Virginia Beach, who tweeted earlier today that he spent the entire 4-hour drive, 4-hour drive back listening to our last 3 or 4 pods.
That poor man. That must have been the longest 8 hours of his life.
It was definitely a horrible 12 hours. But, actually had some good conversation. So great time was had by all. Shout out to everybody. And we have a special guest with us tonight. We have Phil Wood from our good friends at the Short Fuse website that, if you remember, about 6 weeks ago we had Michael Chrisman on. Mm-hmm. And it was so amazing that our listeners, I'm sure, have been checking out the content and the blogs on your site. But Phil, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. It's happy to be here.
Great.
And Phil is a fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs, hockey reference, which is the only team up until tonight that my Washington Capitals can beat in the playoffs. But we've promised we're going to keep the hockey talk to a minimum, even though Andy tries to take over the podcast to talk about.
It's only because I just weep in the background.
He's in the fetal position, but
you're gonna. Yeah.
Phil, I believe
is off Canada with that talk.
Phil, I believe your Twitter handle is @AlsoNamedPhil.
That's correct.
So who's the original Phil then? Who's primarily named Phil?
Who's primarily really kind of came about because when I joined Twitter, again, we're going to go to hockey reference here. It was the only player on the Leafs really worth talking about was Phil Kessel. And the big thing about Phil Kessel was whenever he scores, if you watch Penguins feeds now, and I know Capitals don't, everyone says Phil, and so I just sort of took that because I'm also Phil, and
how'd you do tonight,
so I threw in named in there just to get it. So
yeah, well, how does Phil Kessel feel tonight anyway?
Pretty rough, I bet.
Pretty rough. So you've been with the Short Fuse, writing blogs and articles and stuff. How did that all get started?
They were just looking for extra writers, and I had been in the comment section for a while, and just said that they liked my creativity with the comments, and so I just said, hey, I'd like to write for you, and they said, welcome aboard. So now I just help them do some news and a few opinion pieces when I get around to it. And I had kind of taken up the sort of after game thing we used to do of good, bad, and the ugly, but the season turned into so much ugly it's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, we kind of got our start the same way. We would listen to other podcasts like Bergkamp Wonderland and all that, and then there was no comment section, so we would just both shout at our computers for an hour or so, and somehow they heard it and they're like, "Oh, you should start your own podcast." So it was a very similar story, but and what's your Arsenal story? Like why Arsenal? What's the background there?
That's a great story. In
5 words or less. No, I'm just kidding.
My father is actually English. And I joined the sort of the Gooner world in 1999 when we started getting the games in Canada. And I was actually over in England that year. And I was sitting with my uncle, who is a Arsenal supporter, because he knows which side to go for. Yeah. And we were watching I guess it was the Charity Shield back then. Now we call it the Community Shield. And that was Arsenal versus Manchester United. And Arsenal won that 2-1, which made my aunt upset because she's a Manchester United fan.
Oh, fuck your aunt.
I know.
Sorry. We've only just met, but I have pretty strong feelings about it.
And I just sort of like watched the team, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the colors. And I thought, well, this seems like they just won the year before. This looks like a good team to support. And so I went out and I got my jersey with my souvenir money that year. And I kept that jersey, still wear it. Of course, it might make my father a bit upset because he's actually a Spurs fan.
Oh, jeez.
The family. His father was a Chelsea fan, so the
what
whole
is with
family
you
has arguments going.
And what is with dads? I mean, your dad, Andy.
Yeah.
Dad's what, a West Ham supporter?
Yeah.
Oh, nice
and
one.
this, I mean, at least my dad had the decency to never actually pay attention to sports. He liked classical music, so you can see why I'm so damaged. Yeah, he was a podiatrist, so football probably wasn't his favorite sport anyway. But incredible segue to talking about Manchester United. Andy.
Yeah, Mike, incredible. Thank you for that. God.
I'm such a broadcaster now. I like my chops.
So we'll jump headfirst into the match, and I'm going to morph this week's host question with the opening of the game review. And so to start the match, it was a weird game from the perspective of it seemed like in the first 5 minutes there was a lot of action, and then there was about 40 minutes of neither team wanting to fuck up and actually take the game. But I thought we attacked a little bit more than they did. And so the question is, Mike, we got the win. Is it bigger for us that we beat Manchester United 2-0 or that we beat Jose in the league?
Yeah, it's the age-old debate of is it really about Jose? And I mean, it's nice to see him lose a dominance that he's had over Wenger. I mean, it's, before Wenger leaves, whenever that is, it kind of would have sucked if he never actually beat Mourinho in a league game. So we can put that whole thing to bed now. And, it's kind of silly, but I still haven't given up on the top four at this point. So, I mean, it was certainly going to be over if we hadn't beaten United. I mean, I think it's more important that we beat United. Fuck Jose. Let's not make him any more important than he is. But I mean, we've beaten City and United in different competitions in the last few months or a few weeks, which is psychologically positive for the team, even if we shit the bed against Spurs. But my hope from it is that we take the confidence out of it to be able to just get the job done and get 12 points out of 12 with the competition we have left in the league.
Phil, Mike had just mentioned fourth place. Do you feel like we could sneak in, or do you think it's just a little too late, too short type of a scenario?
On probability, yeah, it's really late to leave it, but that's kind of what Arsenal likes to do. Mm-hmm. So there's a slight chance if Liverpool, and I think it is Liverpool we're chasing, if they drop, say like at West Ham, which isn't exactly an easy match for them, but Arsenal has to win out, which, they have Southampton and Everton to play. There's easy opportunity to drop points. So I would not bet on it at this point, but, we've had these late show dramatics before, so hey, I'm all up for it if they can run the table.
It seems to happen every year. I think Liverpool just has to lose one game or tie 2 games, and they only have 2 games left. And then we have to run the table.
One draw, and Arsenal wins out. And it's like 75 points for Arsenal, 74 for Liverpool, and Liverpool becomes Spurs. It's just crazy.
So we look at the starting 11 for this, and there were 2 changes. We kind of called bullshit on the last pod that Holding wasn't included in the lineup against Spurs. We see him in the lineup against United, and he played really well again. I think that there was the one mistake, which I'm actually going to blame Koscielny a little bit more than Holding. I think Koscielny just dropped his head and wasn't paying attention. But I thought he had an outstanding match. Mike, do you feel like he's played well against City, he's played well against United? Is he guaranteed a starting 11 spot for the remaining part of the season, or do you feel like we're just going to continue to rotate back there?
I mean, no one's guaranteed anything. I saw a statistic, though, that not including the first game of the season where he was rushed into the lineup against Liverpool, I think we've lost 1 game with him playing. We've had 6 clean sheets. I mean, it's very similar to the stats about Mustafi earlier in the season, having not lost a game. But there is something to it. He's just getting better and better every time he plays, and he's going to make mistakes. He's still young, but he offers so much more right now. So. I mean, he was very, very solid on the day. I think he won the ball back that ultimately led to our second goal as well. So, I mean, if it's between Holding and Mustafi or Gabriel at this point, it's got to be Holding. What I'm interested in is what's going to happen next season, though. Like, if we do 3 in the back from the beginning of next season, is it going to be Koscielny, Holding, and Mustafi? And if so, where does Bellerin? I mean, there's going to be kind of a Bellerin Ox dilemma on the right wing back. But I mean, I think Holding and where does Chambers go? I mean, it's all of a sudden there's a lot of people. I don't know that they're world class people, but we have a lot of options, and Holding's got to be in the mix.
Yeah, I was having a Twitter conversation with a woman who was a Middlesbrough fan while they were playing Chelsea today, and she said that Chambers was pretty much their only bright spot this season. When he was allowed to play. So glowing reference for him there. Phil, we saw Gibbs play again yesterday. Not having the greatest of games against Spurs at left wing back. Do you feel like he should be getting the nod ahead of, I'm going to say Gabriel, because if Gabriel is in the back 3, then Monreal's pushed out left. What was your perception of Gibbs in this match compared to what we've seen previously?
I'd give Gibbs a solid meh. I mean, he knows his defensive side of the game, but when it comes to attack as a wingback, I just don't think he offers the attack that the Ox gives or Bellerin. Unfortunately, they're both on the other side of the pitch, which is like we don't have the other option. So it would be really great to see Nacho in that spot, just because I think he's their best, the best option going forward. I mean, I don't think he hurt Arsenal. I mean, the larger part of that is because I don't think Manchester United gave Arsenal anything to really worry about. But in his crossing and anything he offered in the attack, it just didn't come off for Gibbs. And I really think this is probably the last season we see him.
Yeah, I have to agree, but I also have to you feel a little bit bad for him because when you're playing behind Sanchez, and you never know what the fuck Sanchez is going to do with the ball, it's a little bit harder for him to get into positions to support, and so it's kind of like he's in that catch-22, and maybe I'm making an excuse for him, but I just feel like Sanchez will sometimes get the ball and just make these outrageous runs through the middle and push the ball forward, and so he's thinking to himself, well, I don't want to catch myself too far forward, and so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. There's a lot of chatter around the interwebs that we are looking for a left-sided defender.
There's a reason Gibbs doesn't have a song. I mean, he's been here how long now, and no one's bothered to make a song for him.
Well, he hasn't really broken into the first squad though, has he? Like when was the last time he got a run of games of 10+,
It's been a while, but we just used to just like wait while another player's song was being sung, and then at the end of it just go, and Gibbs.
And he's basically your no-nonsense fullback. Like, there's nothing flashy to his game, and I think he's out of place providing further up. So, yeah, it's a shame it never really came off for him, but he's been there, and, thanks for the tenure, but it's time to move on.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's this guy, this free transfer that we either signed or haven't signed yet from Bosnia, but I'm just tired of talking about the whole Gibbs and Monreal thing at this point. I think I would be fine seeing someone new just sweep both of them out of the at least out of the starting lineup. Keeping one as a reserve, maybe, but I think it's clear that these guys are going to be on again, off again so much that it's not the long-term solution.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. So we scored 2 goals in quick succession. The Xhaka goal, great shot from distance. I mean, you could totally tell he was teeing himself up. A lot of luck hitting the back of Herrera, but at the end of the day, he took the gamble and it went in. Phil, do you think we should be encouraging players of his caliber to shoot a little bit more from distance, or do you feel like, hey, we'll just rein him in when we can? Because it seems like when we do, like the Ox as well in this game had a great shot from distance, and we don't see that enough at Arsenal. So do you feel like we should add that to our repertoire?
Repertoire?
I don't know how you suggest they should.
I just think by encouragement, because it seems like we have a manager who doesn't encourage.
Like crowd encouragement or manager encouragement?
Manager, because the crowd encourage enough, but the manager to say, give it a rip from every time to time.
Well, I think in both cases, both Ox's from range, which I thought was a really good strike, and, you're going against De Gea, so whatever. You're not going to score many of those. And it took Xhaka having a really nice bounce off the back of Herrera, who turned his back, which I don't understand why he did that at all. But when you had, especially a team that was going to sit off and try to do defensive formations above anything else, I think, players should be happy to have a crack because, nothing was happening. I mean, up until that shot, it really was like since I think the shot before that was Ox's long-range shot. So you had, I think, 20, 25 minutes of just, nothing really happening from either side. So Xhaka just saying, fine, I'm just going to just smash this one, and, hey, it worked out. I think, that's when you want players from just have a go because nothing else is working.
Yeah, it should be situational. I mean, it's not an overall policy, but yes, you shoot more from distance. It's exactly like you're saying, Phil. I mean, if the game calls for it, have a crack. If it doesn't, and there's a lot of room to penetrate, then don't be wasting possession by losing it by taking a crack. But we certainly should be encouraging kicking balls off of people's backs. I mean, that needs to be put into the game plan.
And also, if you have 2 shots and they're from distance and they're way off target, just don't do it again.
Well, we're not.
You had your chance. You blew it.
We're not talking Aaron Ramsey type shots, but the reason I ask is because this was another game where we had so much build up in the first half, but we weren't breaking into that 18, and so I just feel like there should be something a little bit different we add to our build up. Now, 2 minutes later, we see our lead double after Welbeck scores a beauty of a header. 2 things I know about Welbeck: he's that guy. And and he loves a goal against United. And to be fair to him, it's been a rough kind of go since he joined Arsenal with a lot of injuries. He's finding his form again. Mike, when Welbeck is fully fit, is he the striker that we've been searching for? The striker that runs in behind defenders, has the speed, has the touch, has the powerful shot, and can just give 2 or 3 defensive backs a tough run at it?
Well, I mean, he's not the striker that I feel like we've been waiting for all these years as the solution. I mean, Aubameyang, Griezmann, Lacazette, Lewandowski, Higuain, these are the guys that are the striker that we've been waiting for that. But, Welbeck it was easy to forget in his 2 long injury absences what he brings to the table. But when healthy, I think he could be a spot starter up front. He certainly could be a productive winger. I mean, I had no problem with him when he was playing left wing with Alexis up top, or even with Giroud up top. I thought he did so much more than his predecessor in that position, which was Iwobi. I love the guy. I mean, I'm happy to see him healthy again, but I don't think you rely on him leading the line next season. That wouldn't make me comfortable at all, and you just kind of have to wait for the loud snapping sound on Wednesday to take that decision away from us. That's inevitable, but yeah, I mean, I like him, but let's not get overly excited about him. He's still Danny Welbeck.
Well, he'll probably be benched on Wednesday for Giroud, so we'll see.
Yeah, and Holding will be benched too.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to beat this with a dead horse, or like a dead horse. Yeah, I almost said whore then.
How many dead whores have you beaten this week?
Lawyers tell me not to discuss that. Let's talk about Ozil quickly. I for one thought he had a quiet game, but I don't feel like he has had the Ozil-type games we've come to expect in the last couple months, or let's be honest, since Christmas. I thought that he was an impact player where he needed to be. Do you feel like I'll go to Phil on this one. Phil, do you feel like he's being lost in this formation? There's a lot of rumors in the press that he's got some personal issues, so maybe that's a mixture. But is this the type of formation where we could see Ozil shine, or do you feel like, hey, if we stay with this, he's just going to be one of those average players, or should we build a better team around him so he fits himself into this formation a little better?
Before this game, I would have agreed that this formation might be hurting Ozil, and you might want to move on from him. But against Man United, I felt that this was probably his best game as maybe not the central piece, but a complementary piece. Mm-hmm. I was actually really impressed with both him and Alexis and the work they did. I saw them down in the corners working together. I saw them, both moving the ball well, especially when Alexis actually dropped back. That this actually helped Ozil. This game kind of fit in he did things well. He wasn't the star, which, we've kind of expected him to be, especially when we played the what is it, 4-2-3-1 or whatever the hell these numbers are. That, it was probably the first game in a while I thought, oh man, we could use both these players if we just add something around them in terms of a star striker. So I was actually happy with Ozil's game, even if he didn't, get all the assists and drive all the play, because he was still involved and did a decent job. He didn't hurt, he didn't star, but he was doing a really solid work ethic.
Yeah, I thought so too. Mike, I'm going to ask you the same question, but I want you to answer it from Sanchez's perspective. Do you think he played well? Do you think that he's trying to play himself a little bit too much into the matches and be a little bit too much our main guy?
I just don't know what to make of him, and I'm just so tired of thinking and talking about Ozil and Sanchez so much.
Well, you're not talking about Ozil; you're talking about Sanchez.
I know, but I'm just saying this whole. This summer just needs to happen quickly and get it over with, because I don't know what the deal is with Sanchez. I read an article with him that was presumably real, because you never know with these articles, about with Jeff Shreves of Sky Sports. And, in that article, he came across as being quite committed to winning and to staying with this team and saying nice things about the team, and kind of pointing the finger at himself for saying that's why he gets frustrated. And then, his actions on the field just belie that. And I mean, his play has not been particularly stellar for what you expect out of a guy of his quality. I don't think he was one of the better players on the pitch yesterday. But he continues to lose possession pretty regularly and early on in the game, and it's just confounding. I don't know what's going on in his head, and we're gonna have to wait till this summer to figure it out.
Well, I think he's the consummate professional, right? He's always going to say the right things. Even when he was going through that rough patch at Barcelona, he carried himself in the press very well. I feel like he's a smart player where he knows when the cameras are going to be on him. So there was that moment where Ramsey looked for Welbeck and not Sanchez. He had that little, like, I'm going to freak out. He knew the cameras were on him, but you can see the delight when Welbeck scored. You can see the delight when we get these wins. We saw it a couple weeks ago at Middlesbrough where it was just like that relief. And so I truly hope that he does stay with the team. I really, really do hope he signs an extension. But what was great this weekend was we carried ourselves even when he was having a bad game. And we have not seen that very often. We've relied on him a lot this season to carry us over the hurdle. And he didn't have a great game yesterday, but we carried ourselves and we kind of pulled together as a unit. And Tim, my neighbor, who's been on the pod before, had said, we get one game a month where Arsenal turn it on. And if we had played like that the majority of the season, who knows where we could have been.
Sometimes we get one half a month where we turn it on.
That's true. True.
Intense halves. But, I will say, to your point, far too often when things are kind of lagging, when it's a 0-0 or behind 1-0, it's almost like the whole team looks to Alexis to try to just bail him out. And sometimes he does, and other times he doesn't. But, yesterday that could have been very easily what started to happen towards the end of the first half without being able to make the breakthrough. And like you said, they found their scoring, they found their mojo elsewhere. And that's important. I think that would probably make Alexis very happy.
Right.
That it wasn't his responsibility to just fix things.
Right. So, quick question for you both. Man of the match, Phil, who would you have given the man of the match to?
I agree with who the stadium gave it to with Aaron Ramsey. I think he's been a frustrating player this year. He's been frustrating years for a lot of people, but that game against Man United showed exactly what you want from him. He was making the runs. He was linking up with people. He was getting back in formation when he needed to. If he was, a couple inches taller, he would have had a goal in the first half, leaping his head forward, but, that happens. And I thought he was everywhere. It's what you wanted from him, and we haven't seen that from him that often in the past season and a half, and whether that's injuries or whatever, it's what he does for Wales, and it's what we need him for Arsenal. And if he can keep doing that, he's got a spot in this team that it's going to be bright. But that's up to him, I guess.
Yeah, no, we need 25 to 30 games a season of that Aaron Ramsey.
Exactly,
and then. No player is going to hold every game, so you get another 10 to 15 of the Ramsey we're used to, and you got a fucking great player. Mike, who was your man of the match?
I mean, it's getting kind of old and repetitive, but you got to give a good shout to Ox.
Yeah.
It was definitely not a full game performance from him, but the second half performance was just amazing. His ingenuity and his presence on the ball, his crossing, that cross that he basically he lost the ball. It was won back by Holding, and he just turned it in for a beautiful cross to Danny Welbeck, and it was quality. So you have to give him a shout. But I'm actually gonna go a little off the beaten path and surprise some people. I'm gonna give the man of the match to Francis Coquelin. Not because of his overall play for the 15 minutes that he got, but for one shining moment.
The jump.
Where he attempted to get in the way of Rooney's shot. I mean, if it sounds like both of you have seen it, but if anyone listening to this has not seen the video yet, Google Coquelin dives in front of Rooney's shot, and it is the best. I mean, you could say he's not a very good footballer, or as our friend Jason Davies says, you could say he's an awful footballer. But don't tell me he doesn't have that fighting spirit that you want on your team, because that was just probably one of the favorite moments of the season for me. For that, he gets man of the last sixth of the match. If you got to give it to a guy who played the majority of the game, I'll say Ox.
Yeah, I was going to say the Ox for me. Every time he got the ball, he pushed it forward. He had the 2 assists. Outside of the first half, where he had that one defensive error, I thought he was defensively really solid. I would definitely give Jacques an honorable mention, but I think my man of the match would probably go to Cech, because he kept us in the first half with that save on Rooney. He got that good save at the near post with Martial, and so he had a cool and collective head again, another big game for him, and I think that those two saves were key for keeping us in the match. But it's nice to be able to walk away from a game where the three of us have different answers, and we have 4 or 5 players who are vying for that. But ultimately, I thought Ramsey played really well, so we have a lot of honorable mentions.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to select players of the game when you win the game.
Yeah,
and when it isn't just one guy pumping in a goal and winning 1-0. I think this was, again, I want to temper it, because I thought Man United were boring and didn't want to do anything when they had the ball. But front to back, Arsenal were up for this game. And you got to give credit to the whole team that this is probably one of the few team performances I think we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great 3 points. It's always nice to get a win over Jose, but I look at it more of the rivalry with United, and I'm glad that we are at least pushing towards a decent end of the season, and we play in a couple days against Southampton, which is our biggest banana skin of the last couple seasons. But they're not playing too hot right now, so hopefully we win out and we get pushed for that 4th place.
They could be had. They could definitely be had.
Oh, absolutely.
Right now.
I mean, we had them a few months ago, 5-0 in the FA Cup. Different squad that's likely going to play,
slightly different.
But we'll do our best, I'm sure. Yeah. And hopefully the lineup stays the same, because the boys played really well, and I don't want to see Giroud go in there. He just doesn't fit in this formation, and it'd be nice to go out with another bang, and especially with Danny having this confidence now.
Where is Iwobi right now? He's healthy?
He's healthy. He's on the bench.
He's in Wenger hell right now.
Could you see him come in with Ozil and have Alexis in the center? Do you think that's an option for this formation?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I would prefer to see Alexis in the center with Welbeck out on the left, personally.
Okay.
But I'm almost to the point where we've got these options, but I don't see Iwobi breaking into this 11 at this point, unless there's a run of injuries with a couple different players. I think he's at the right point right now, and that's on the bench.
I actually, I think he would be a perfect candidate for a loan next season. I know that doesn't usually happen, although we saw it with Jack, where you get somebody who kind of had that golden position of getting, trusted by Arsene Wenger to be in the starting lineup. And I think he got a little mentally jaded and physically isn't up to par to play a full 90 minutes when he has to. I don't know that.
No, I agree with you, Mike. We should send him to a team like West Ham or Everton. I mean, Everton would be great because they're going to get European football. He's going to play in a good system. West Ham would be another good one because they're a London-based team. There's a lot of big matches that they play in. So
with a goddamn recall clause, though, this time. How about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's got to be a must with this team, just because if you have a useful player, not being able to get them back. Because when has Arsenal never had an injury crisis? Like, you pick one position, there'll be one position where they lose everyone.
And that will be the position we loaned. And that will be the position where we loaned out 2 different players to other teams that we can't get back now.
Yeah, like next season we'll be like, all right, it's going to be 3-4-3, and we're going to injure all our wing backs, and we're going to have none left.
Yeah, right.
And we'll have El Neni running around on the right trying to figure out what a wing back is. It's just this is what Arsenal does.
The sad thing is that's so accurate.
Yeah.
So Phil, I was reading about some rumors. The latest rumor is that the possible backup pick if Arsene leaves is now Hardim from Monaco, and just more and more discussion and thoughts about a rift between Wenger and the Arsenal board that seems to be developing. I mean, there are some telltale signs. I mean, Wenger saying, "I'll tell you by this date, by that date," and now he's still not saying anything. I believe he even said, "I was wrong" yesterday when he was confronted about being told.
That was a few days ago, yeah.
Well, yeah, because they pushed a contract in front of him, and then they slowly pulled it back across the table.
like a little fish hook. Like they started pulling it. He would reach for it, and then they would pull it another 2 inches away.
They're like, did anyone? He's like, does someone have a pen I can sign? Oh, we all forgot our pens. No, we don't have a pen.
But I saw a fantastic article on some website called The Short Fuse. It was from some Canadian dude that was called "Is There a Communications Breakdown at Arsenal?" Yeah. And I think it kind of relates to this conversation. Would you care, Phil, to summarize your findings for us?
Yeah. So this comes from Arsblog, which you had on earlier. Who's I listened to that one. That was an excellent podcast. And it's basically he laid out that he's heard that there's absolutely no communication going on between Wenger and the board. And so when Wenger is continually asked, "What's your future?" he's like, "Oh, you'll hear. You'll hear at the end of March." And of course, the end of March comes, and it's like, "Well, you'll hear in April." And April passed by. So you'll hear in May. And so just recently, basically, they said, "Look, you've been telling us we're going to hear what your future is. We haven't heard anything." And he basically said, "Well, I was wrong." And it's that sort of lack of information that's led to this idea that they're not talking. They're not certain what the future is.
Did he overplay his hand a little bit, Wenger?
I think he expected something. I don't disagree that there's probably this is what the offer will be if we resign you, but I think they haven't been talking about the future because to me it really seems like the board is and the whole group is in a wait and see. That I don't know. I don't know what they're waiting for. It really looks to anyone who's watching this team that the results aren't great. The form isn't great. And even if they somehow sneak into the top 4 and have more Champions League, it's really because Liverpool screwed up or Manchester City screwed up, not because Arsenal was a really good team. So what they're waiting for, I'm not certain. And I almost feel you watch the Spurs game and just sort of how Arsenal got steamrolled, and you watch the Manchester United game with how almost loose and confident they felt, that it kind of feels to me that there isn't a plan, but maybe this really is a sign that Wenger is on his way out. And this was the beat Jose Mourinho now because he's gone. Like it just feels, I don't see how he survives this if they're not talking to him, because there's nothing positive to take from this unless he makes top 4, which is at the hands of other teams screwing up.
Yeah.
I mean, we had better find something out ASAP after I guess it's going to be after the FA Cup final, but I mean...
Yeah, that's when it's going to be.
I mean,
absolutely.
they cannot afford to have this uncertainty go into June.
I don't think the FA Cup should save him.
I don't think it should either.
I think it's league form.
Yeah.
Got to be, right?
Yeah, it's got to be. And I truly don't think any of them know what's going on. And that's what happens when you become a dictator at a football club. Because let's be honest, that's what he is. I mean, for lack of a better term, he runs every aspect. And if there's no one that's overlooking him or putting fire under his ass, and then you probably got people in a closed room saying, "Well, you go and tell him." "No, you go and tell him." You go. Right. They need one person to walk in and just fucking nut up and go, "Hey, no contract unless you finish 4th, or we're gonna give you a contract. We're gonna sign it. Go play the game with the press." And And I wonder, after having this thought, do they not want to bring it out because they just want to wait until the end of the season? Because you keep saying all contracts are going to wait until the summer, and is he including his own? And why not just say that? Why not just say, hey, everything will be addressed this summer? And then the questions stop. Don't come out and say...
I think that's part. Right. I think that's part with the lack of communication.
Yeah.
Which is,
the questions don't stop.
What the questions don't stop.
They just become, why did you tell us that you were going to tell us, and now you're telling us
right,
that you're not.
But if in February he said you'll know in June or July, then
that could have made it a lot easier.
That would have made it a lot easier.
Don't put it past the board just to say, oh yeah, that's what we're going to do, because when you're in February, things aren't so bad. You're still in the Champions League. You have an outside chance at the title, although I think we were all doubting that. And then they had an absolutely atrocious February. That was some of the worst football coming out of the club for a while, and it continued into March. And you think at that point, after you've played your hand of we'll work on something, you really can't go back on that. So you're kind of like, and I think the board kind of let Wenger out to dry on that. Just sort of if they're not talking to him, I mean, maybe they are, and they're being really super quiet that people can't get into that circle. But yeah, and I don't think Wenger enjoys questions about what your future is, and he's not going to give us an answer till the season ends. So let's hope we get one over on Chelsea, win that FA Cup, and he can waltz away, the most successful FA Cup winning manager in England. And let's all remember him positively, because, that would be excellent. I think that's the best case scenario they got right now.
Yeah. Besides coaching Arsenal, do you know what he loves to do the most?
Eat bread.
No, he loves to go to people's houses. Because the latest revelation is that he went to Mbappe's house last summer to try to sign him.
Right.
And I read that story, and I'm like, you're the coach, you're the manager
Mike,
of Arsenal. How many fucking houses do we have to hear that you went to without getting the player?
He's visiting Mbappe's mom. That's
Mike, tell me, where did that news article come from?
Mbappe Times.
Right. So unless there's direct quote, and Arsene loves to say, "Hey, I knew of this player. Of course you did." Blah blah blah. Mbappe is there isn't a chance in hell we are signing this player. No, Manchester United just had a 70 million bid rejected. Mbappe has got Real Madrid written all over him, and so if he doesn't go this year, he'll go next. There'll be a pre-agreement, but. You know what?
No, but I mean, why does he have to keep leaving people's houses without a contract?
Well, because that's what he does. Because we don't have that director of football, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So, I mean, he needs to decide whether he wants to be the basketball coach at Duke doing home recruiting visits constantly, or if he's the fucking manager of Arsenal. I mean, it's ridiculous. I hope he's at least fucking some of these kids' moms.
Well, I would hope so too. I mean, off the field, this has probably been the biggest issue I've had with Arsene, because you look at the Agueros, Ronaldo, Hazard, the list. You have some names here: Higuain, Conte, Suarez, Lacazette. I mean, we've come so close to signing such great players, or so we're led to believe that they were close, and we always fall just short. And then another team will come in, and then it'll come out that we were 5 million, 7 million pounds away. This is where a director of football would come in handy, right. Somebody who really knows the market, someone that has a balance of this is an achievable target, and the manager goes to them and says, these are the 4 positions, these are the 15 players that I like, this is the amount of money you get, go and get these players. Whatever feels...
And you send a check to the person's house. You don't send Arsene Wenger to the house. He's clearly not good in the house. But yeah, I mean the dithering and the back and forth. I mean, there's so many we almost got, and this hard bargaining, principled approach where we're not going to pay 40 for Lacazette. We'll only pay 34.7, and because of that, we're losing our must go destination.
I'll tell you something, Mike. If Mbappe does go and play for Real, that means there'll be a Real reject that we can snap up.
Yeah, it'll be James probably.
Probably, which I would be happy with. But let's talk quickly, and I'll go to Phil here. Alexis, there's some rumors in the press that Bayern are coming in at a £55 million offer. Would you do that deal right now if they came in and handed you a check for $55 million for Alexis Sanchez this summer? Would you do it?
It's hard to say no. I mean,
do we know he'll accept it? Are we assuming that he?
We're assuming that he's going to go.
Accept it. He doesn't have to accept it, right?
Right.
He's got another year, but that's a hard. It really depends on your relationship with Alexis Sanchez. If you think he's going to commit to the club, and you think he's working his best with the team you're trying to build, yeah, you want to hold on to him because he's that game breakers type of player who will come in and do something fantastic and win you a game that you weren't going to win. But yeah, $55 million is hard to say no to when there might be options if selling him shakes other people's loose. If Real Madrid goes out and get Mbappe, there are players who will shake loose that you can have for less than $55 million. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's hard to say no. I would prefer to keep him and then add that attacking option.
Right.
But it really depends on where you're going. And that, again, we're going to come back to the manager. If Wenger's still around, what's his vision for the team? If he really is on the way out, what's the next guy's vision for the team? So it's hard to tell. I don't put a lot of faith in the rumors, though, because it could easily just evaporate.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends on whether we end up in the top four as well, because, if we're out of the top four and we sell him to Bayern Munich, the likelihood of us being able to replace him with a player of the same level of class, even if we were ready to spend 75 or 80 million pounds on a guy like a Aubameyang, for instance, they're not going to come here if we're not playing.
I don't buy into that. They're not going to come because
there's only one team that signs players at maximum money that are world-class players or supposed to be world-class players without Champions League football.
Yeah,
there's only one.
Well, and they pay over the odds, but we would be fine. It's one season that we're likely not going to be in the Champions League, and so as Arsene said, over the years of finishing above Tottenham, every once in a while you're not going to do it, and so I feel like if the likes of Ozil and Sanchez does stay, but we finish fifth and they both sign extensions, other players are going to come in and go, hey, I want to play there. If Sanchez does leave, you got to remember, Mike, it's not just Champions League football that attract players. It's money, and we'll pay, right? So
you have money to pay now.
Yeah, I don't buy into. If we were in a Liverpool scenario where you're 4 or 5 seasons without Champions League in a row, then I think you start worrying about attracting those type of players. But
we'll see, because I don't see us paying over the odds for anybody if Arsene Wenger is still the manager.
No,
well, that's pretty much it. But does he stay if you don't have Champions League? So again, we're back to what is the summer plan? Yeah. But we don't know terms on what is Arsene Wenger's plan or Arsene Wenger's future. I think they'll have the money and they'll have the wages to pay whoever they want outside of the upper echelon. That'll all go to Spain because Spain. But so if it's in terms of selling good players to get new good players and rejig the team, that totally depends on who the manager or who the director of football is come this summer.
Right.
Yeah. So in other words, we don't know shit about what's going to happen until the summer, and it's useless to continue to talk about it.
Yep.
Annoying, isn't it?
We got some user questions this week. Actually, we got a lot. We're probably not going to have time to get to all of them, so we will try to save some for the presumed pod that we may or may not be having next week, depending on crowning issues. But I'm going to take half of this question from Jack Armstrong from Portland, Oregon, and ask Andy, would you name your baby Tottenham? First name, of course, if it meant that we would win the league and the Champions League for the next 10 years on the trot.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank Jack for his space exploration. I think that he's done a lot for the future of our planet, and hats off to him.
Yeah, because there's just no knowledge that the guy's name.
This question was posed, which I did. This question was posed, which I took to my wife. She said absolutely not. However, I think I would take one for the team and say yes if it meant 10 years on the trot. Because at the end of the day, his first name might be Tottenham, but his middle name will be what we call him. So,
well, but his middle name would have to be Court. Because then what would his name be?
Well, what's his first name? Tottenham?
Yeah. So what would his name be? Just say it.
I don't know what you're trying to get me to say.
Tottenham Court Roads.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm looking at the names.
You name your son after a tube stop, dude.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's move on. Next question
You could call him Totti.
Yeah.
Then you get a better player to think about.
That's true.
Instead of Tottenham.
Or just call him Scum. Just call him Scum.
So Scum.
Scum.
So Andre at Dre_Lil Mountain from New Jersey asks, if Arsene resigns, do I slit my wrists horizontal or vertical? Oh man, that's morbid.
Pass.
I actually went to Google and searched how to slit your wrists and didn't.
You do it vertical, not horizontal.
Well, yes.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Just don't do it.
I've learned that, but like I was actually relieved to see that the first whole page of links were for like suicide prevention hotlines.
That's good.
And I realized now I've gotten myself on a list like where, some agency is probably watching me from afar to make sure that I'm not threatening myself because
Mike,
of my Google.
you're not trying to fund terrorism here. I doubt they're doing that. But Andre, what I would say to you in this
scenario, they want to
scenario,
save lives, dude.
What I would say to you in this
mine.
scenario is just support Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, but it's not worth it over sport. And
no.
even if they're watching Mike, I mean, they're going to see Arsenal and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you do that, Andre, Little Mountain, you're not going to be able to hear our pod anymore, and that will be the real shame and tragedy of it all. So let's keep you with us.
Sports are fun.
Yeah, question from Alfredo, who from New Orleans, who's been coming up with some questions lately, and I spent a couple days with him watching Arsenal this weekend. If I tell you only one can stay of Giroud, Welbeck, or Lucas, who are you keeping, and briefly, why? Andy.
Welbeck. He's English.
Okay.
Phil?
That's a perfect duration of an answer there. Phil, what do you think?
I mean, if we could combine all three into one, that would probably be the perfect striker for Arsenal. But, the English angle is good for Welbeck, but he's still your second choice. You hope you had someone better. Poor Lucas, though, He doesn't ever get a start. He's been good for them. But
yeah, he has.
He's gone. I can't see why he'd stay.
Yeah, we've talked about him quite a lot on the pod, and it is sad that he hasn't been given the opportunity. But we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. We don't know how serious his injury is. I can't believe a player of his caliber wouldn't be on the bench the last couple months or last couple of weeks. So maybe something is seriously happening. Mike, who would you choose?
If I could guarantee that he was not going to be our first choice, I would take Giroud. Surprisingly,
really?
Yeah. I mean, I think you put him in there situationally, and he can come good. It's just when you rely on him to be your number one guy, he'll be hot for a while, and then he'll be cold for a while. But I mean, the dude can score. And he can offer something that a lot of number nines don't with his back to the goal and his, when he's able to knock the ball down with his head and his assists. I mean, when he's on, he's unlike a lot of players in his position. It's just that he's not on that often. So you want him to be that plan B option that he was for so long until all of a sudden Wenger got in his mind that he wanted him leading the line again and putting Sanchez back out on the wing. So, I mean, I like that Giroud. I don't like the one that we've seen for the last couple months. So, but I'm still a fan. Still a fan.
Should we go to picks, Mike?
Yeah, we could go to picks. Oh, one other, just a comment more from Mr. DJ at Expat Guna pointed out that Phil Shane, who we had on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and I was told this by a few people at the pub as well, just loved the podcast with Phil. It was a great guest, and people keep asking us to get Ray Hudson on the next podcast, which is a logical progression. I would love to. I went to his house to try to sign him to the podcast, and I almost got him, but he signed with Men in Blazers instead. So we'll try again.
We do still have Leo on the books too, Mike. So we have to get him on the pod.
Yeah, Mr. DiCaprio is going to as soon as he's done saving the world and the whales and the manatees, we'll do that. So, just want to thank everyone else for their questions.
We'll get to him next week.
Yeah, we'll get to him if there's not a baby pod.
Do it without him.
Yeah.
Or do it from the hospital. That'd be great.
Yeah. I would like to come home with the family.
Actually, we got time for one more question. Let's do one more question from Danny in GFPville in England.
Wherever that is.
It's somewhere outside of London.
I should know this, but
where people stay in their homes and they never leave and they never come visit London when people are there to visit people that they want to say hi to. So anyway, what would you like to see Wenger do right after the final whistle at the end of the FA Cup final? Obviously, after winning 6-0. Phil,
what would I like to see him do?
Like right after the final whistle.
That just go out and just drink a whole pile of champagne and never leave. Just basically become a permanent fixture at Wembley. He can be like the Phantom of the Opera, just like stay there. Like he's, win the FA Cup, retire from Arsenal and say, look, I can't do anything else. And then anyone else who goes to Wembley in the future just runs into this guy who's still drinking bottles of champagne because he won the FA Cup at Wembley.
Telling people how great he used to be as a coach. Yeah. I mean, I want the cigar in the mouth thing, hold the trophy. I want to see him making obscene gestures at people with his crotch. And
just like carving a hole at center pitch. And just making sweet love to the pitch.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what he deserves. This man is, for a while, he was revolutionizing football. He deserves to have sex with a pitch.
Now, Phil, how deep would that hole need to be to accommodate him?
Man. It's Wenger, man. You've seen the beach football pictures. He needs a healthy hole. I'm not gonna belittle the man.
I'm regretting asking this question now, but all right. How about now we go to picks, Andy?
Yeah, let's do it. Andy? Let's do it.
Okay. All right. We had a match week, and well done to Andy for picking the West Ham win over Spurs. We all mocked him at the time, and he did that. I wish I had had the balls to do that, but it's desperation time for the Mikester. We've only got 3 weeks left in the season. I got to start making some whack-ass picks because I don't need to win. I don't care if the guest spot wins, but I need to finish ahead of Andy. I'm going to keep picking until St. Mikeringham's Day, which could be after this week. So we have six games this week because of another rescheduled Arsenal match. The first one is Arsenal at Southampton this Wednesday. And while I think we got a pretty good shot at beating them, I think we also have a pretty good shot at shitting the bed. We follow one good performance with a dire one. I'm going to go with 1-1 because when everything seems good, we just have to keep reminding ourselves of our problems. So 1-1. Andy?
I'm going to go 4-0 Arsenal.
Yeah, I could see that. All right. That's what it sounds like when I sit down in a chair these days. And Phil, what do you got?
I think Arsenal. I think Arsenal's not going to change the squad midweek because when these sort of things go well, so I think it's going to be 3-1 Arsenal. I think they're going to go behind a goal, but then find 3 goals in the second half because that's where they find them.
Oh, okay, that's a good comeback victory there. Yeah. Leicester at Man City. I'm going to go traditional here. I'll go 3-0 to Man City with a hat trick from Bacardi Sangria.
Nice.
Andy's favorite player. So, yeah, 3-0. Andy, what do you got?
Yeah, I was going to actually echo the same thing. I just don't see Leicester being able to get anything from this, and so I'll go 3-0 City as well.
Is the shine off the rose for Craig Shakespeare?
Oh, God.
So now you're not even going to answer the question.
No, just
okay.
Phil.
All right, Phil.
I'm going to go. Phil, I'm going to go 2-1 Man City. I expect like 3 own goals or something. It's just going to be nonsense.
Yeah. Well, Man City will probably win in like the last 10
minutes. Yeah. It'll be like the 98th minute, and they'll pop one and just be like, okay, normal service.
Southampton at now relegated Borough as of a few hours ago, and I actually wrote my pick down before that happened. for some crazy reason, I'm going to stick with it. Borough 2, Southampton 1. Borough doing what they can to stave off relegation. Well, that's what you call an obsolete pick at this point. But I'm just going to stick with it because when I get fancy, I start missing games. So, Andy, and I can get fucking fancy.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 1-0 Southampton.
Okay, and Phil? I'm also going to go 1-0 Southampton and pity anyone who watches this match because it's going to be boring.
This is our shit game of the week.
We have Southampton playing midweek and then this one against a relegated team. Yeah, no one's going to care except, I guess Borough might want some pride.
That woman that you were talking to on Twitter this week, Andy, might care.
Yeah, she might.
Yeah, talking to women. There you go.
Yeah, talking to women while your wife is 9.5 months pregnant.
I would like to preface that I think this woman we were speaking of was maybe like a teenager.
Oh, that makes it so much better.
She responded to something I posted about Brad Guzan being shit.
Why did you even give us
that? She responded to something you posted on Craigslist, I believe. That's probably what happened. But, yeah, you and Arsene Wenger just digging holes for yourself. All right, Liverpool at West Ham. I'm going to go 1-0 to West Ham. West Ham doing what they can to stave off relegation. All right, Andy, what do you think?
I just don't see Liverpool. I don't see Jurgen not getting the troops ready for this. So I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool.
Okay. Yeah, this could be the banana skin game that gets us into the top 4. But
could be.
Yeah.
Bill,
I'm going to go with the banana skin. And I'm going to say because Liverpool is that team that never slips up. It's going to be 3-3 in a repeat of the Crystal Palace game from years ago when they really should have won the title.
Yes, I remember that one.
That was such a beautiful moment.
Which I think was followed the following week by the Gerrard slip against Chelsea. Was that were those back to back?
No, it was before that. 3-3 was the final match of the day.
Oh, God, yeah.
Where they had to win for any chance. And I think they were up 3-0 and they ended up 3-0.
No, that they were. I remember that very well. I was on a treadmill at the gym back when I cared about my body.
So I think they're going to go. It's going to be a fun game, but 3-3.
Okay. Well, we'll watch that one. Man U at Scum. It's the final game at the old White Hart Lane. Everybody other than Sol Campbell will be in attendance. And speaking of Sol Campbell, Andy, was that really necessary? Texts me a nude picture of Sol Campbell, which was very tastefully, artfully done, by the way. But I didn't need that.
Yeah, you did.
That wasn't what I needed at that moment.
That was sent to me from a West Ham a friend of mine. So
that's what you needed in 2006.
In other words, your father sent that to you. Your father sends you naked pictures of men. There are so many natural disasters that I would want to have happen during this game. It's not even funny, but if they do get through 90 minutes without a ridiculous pitch invasion of idiots, I'll go with 2-0 to Spurs. Hate to say it, but Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't see Spurs not winning this match. I'm going to go 3-1.
And Phil?
If there's anything Jose Mourinho does well, it's ruin people's parades. I'm going with an absolute dour 0-0. They'll probably hit a few posts, but Spurs aren't winning this game just because of Mourinho.
Any offside goals called back?
Oh, there's as many as you want, man. It's going to be it's going to be the saddest game.
It's at White Hart Lane, so there won't be that many. There'll be a couple penalties from them diving, but
that's true. And we have the third annual Joel Campbell Get Out While You Still Can game. It's Arsenal at Stoke. To me, I'm wondering why the hell Arsenal has to take the fucking train home from Stoke. I mean, isn't there a more classy way of traveling? I have a feeling they probably won't take the train home again after what happened to them a couple of seasons ago. But, I was being really negative when I picked this. And I'll stick with it because I'm desperate for points. I'm going to go with 2-1 to Stoke. Sorry. Andy?
I'll go 1-0 Arsenal.
Yeah, I think St. Mikeringham's Day might just be this Sunday. And go down in a blaze of glory. Phil, what do you think?
And fuck Stoke. It's going to be 9-0 Arsenal. They're going to clobber them. I hate Stoke.
If you get that correct, we will award you the title personally.
I hope so. I deserve one.
We will bring the title to Toronto. All right, so couple final thoughts here. We got 2 games this week. We've just kind of talked about them in our picks, Southampton and Stoke. Those are our last 2 away games of the season. If we sit here next week with 2 wins out of that, we will be really, really close to 4th place with a couple home games left. But any thoughts or interesting ideas for what might happen this week beyond the score predictions?
No, I think we'll get 6 points. I think we'll keep the run close. And I think the biggest game on our that's our biggest game is Southampton on Wednesday.
Yeah, it would be nice to put 2 games in a row together.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
So 2 new countries, and they're both in the Caribbean. So we're, as the weather gets nicer, although it's always nice there, we're getting more popular. So we have country number 86, Turks and Caicos.
All right.
Where I could have gone for that being country number 100 because we've promised to visit country number 100, and that's a place I wouldn't mind going. But and then country number 87, probably not so much, Haiti. So we would like to thank the wonderful people of Haiti for listening to our podcast, all of the one of you that has. And I just want to finish off with a review. We always ask for people to leave reviews on iTunes, thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, all the different ways you can kind of support the podcast and let us know what you think. I got to say it took about 3 or 4 weeks for me to catch this review, but I finally read it this weekend, and it's perfect. So here is the review that we received from Victoria Concordia Baconator, which the name of the iTunes user is enough is it's enough to make me fall in love with him, and it's not me reviewing our own podcast. Gooners in the USA is a great podcast that offers an insightful look at Arsenal while not taking Arsenal too seriously. Mike and Andy do a great job of getting great guests, fun topics, and numerous Baconator references. That's a big deal for this guy. One of the reasons I love this podcast is that Mike and Andy are ordinary Gooners just like me and many other Gooners, which makes this very easy for us as listeners to relate with them. I'm always looking forward to great guests, laughs, and many Baconator references. He's a Baconator guy.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that much is clear. I recently started listening to this podcast and had not been disappointed since then. If you love Arsenal and love banter and love Baconators, this is a podcast for you. So I want to thank Victoria Concordia Baconator for kind of getting the whole pod. And please continue to leave feedback and connect with us on Twitter. And we may or may not be back next week, depending on if Tottenham Court Roads has been born or not.
Phil, thanks a lot for joining us, my man.
That's no problem, man. Anytime you guys want me, I'm happy to come back. This has been fun.
Great. Please check out the Short Fuse.
Absolutely do.
Yeah, what's the website? It's the shortfuse.sbnation.com, is that right?
Exactly, and we're doing our best to keep it positive, keep it happy, and keep you up to date on everything Arsenal's doing, and we got a great team. So if you notice any of us, follow any of us on Twitter. We're a good bunch, but don't follow me because I talk mostly hockey on Twitter.
All right. Well, I appreciate you keeping that hockey talk to a minimum tonight, and everybody have a good week. Come on, you Gooners.